Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're joining in the world. I know we have people joining us from Australia, from Europe and the US. So I'm glad and delighted that you're here today to join us to talk about knowing your support options for Oracle 12c. It's the second in a short range of webinars that we've been putting together recently. Now, one of the things I want to do today immediately introduce you to both myself and Amol, who's joined us. So I'm the Vice President and General Manager for Spinnaker Support here in EMEA. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Amol, who's kindly agreed to spend the time with us over the next half hour to talk about his experience around Oracle and also with Spinnaker. So Amol, if you could introduce yourself and share a little bit about Danske Bank, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Martin, and hello, everyone. I am Amol Ghadge. I manage and lead database technology, services, and operations of Danske Bank, which is one of the leading bank of Denmark and having major operations in Nordic regions. We have quite a number of Oracle databases, which includes versions from 12c to 19c. And Spinnaker is a go-to person for my technical team for issues related to Oracle databases.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amol. I really appreciate that. So for everyone that's joining, what we're going to discuss today is what is happening to Oracle 12c. We're then going to discuss what that means. And then finally, 6 options for you that you might want to consider about what to do next. So in summary, what's happening to Oracle 12c? Well, if we look at Oracle's lifetime support, this is a database now that's reached the end of its supported life. It was released back in July 2013. Time's flown by. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, Oracle goes through its lifetime support for those that are on full release of 5 years of Premier support, followed by another 3 years of extended support, which, to be fair, is the same experience, just an additional charge from Oracle to do that. When that finishes, we go into what's called sustaining support, which is where we are now with Oracle 12c. Sustaining support gives you all the advantages that you had previously around being able to use My Oracle Support, being able to go for software upgrades to the newest versions as they become available. But what it doesn't do is provide bug fixes for any new bug that's identified, and there are no more security patches that happen at that stage. So in 12c, there are really 2 versions. There was 12.2, which was an innovation release, which is already in that sustaining support. And there's 12.1, which will be going into sustaining support at the end of July. Now, just before I talk to Amol and ask him a little bit about his experience, the reason these bars go up is talking about actually the charges. And so it goes up each year normally because there is an inflationary increase. So hopefully this is something which those of you that have to pay the fees to Oracle will recognize. But obviously it's a graphical representation to that. So Amol, you mentioned that you have versions 12 and 19 in your environment today. Obviously you've run previous versions with Oracle in the past as well, I presume, 11, 10, probably even 9 and 8. So what has been your experience of going from extended support into sustaining support? What's that meant for Danske Bank?
Okay, for us, we always prefer to upgrade our databases, but although upgrades brings new features and capabilities to the database, but upgrades cannot happen overnight. It requires a considerable amount of efforts from various IT teams. And for example, an application which is consuming Oracle database as service has we have to upgrade that database. Then it has to go through performance testing, then functional testing, and security compliance and risk assessment. And to get certified to the newer version, and it becomes a project in itself, and it is not always possible to upgrade. So in the interest of our end customer, and to meet our security and compliance and risk standards, we prefer to keep our prefer not to upgrade rather than going to the uncertified version. So yeah, to get, so the patches, so we lose the quarterly patches and bug fix patches when we uh, go to sustaining support, and we are managing it uh, through alternate way, and Spinnaker helps us for these uh, databases which goes into sustaining support.
Well, we'll come to that a little bit later. Obviously, that's
Okay.
hopefully be a nice surprise for some of the people on this call who are not
Okay.
aware of what options are available there. But before we started working together, if you had a database that was in sustaining support, I mean, as you mentioned, obviously the bank tries to upgrade to new versions, but not always do you need the new version for new capability or functionality. You're often doing it to be supported. And I think when we discussed previously, you mentioned that there are some environments where you can't upgrade because it
Correct.
breaks ability. So what do you do in that circumstance? How did you, should I say, not how do you, how did you stay in that
Okay.
environment,
So
considering you're a regulated?
yeah, yes, we have to uh, we have to secure those databases uh, using the by hardening our underlying platform, and our security team is involved in hardening those platform at OS level and network level, and a lot of skills are invested there.
Absolutely, and presumably you also need to add an extra monitoring layer as well to ensure that.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So quite, and I think one of the things I heard you say recently was that actually, on the whole, you often don't want to upgrade. It's just you're forced to because you're missing the patches and the bug fixes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't want to put words in your mouth. So, but it's yes.
No, but that's correct. But
Yeah. So the main impact for people like Danske Bank and anyone really who is now running technology that's going to be in sustaining support is the lack of those new security patches and the lack of new bug fixes. So the security patches is, I guess, probably one of the ones which gets most people motivated, because the vulnerabilities don't stop existing. And when Oracle releases its CVEs each quarter for what will now be just 19C and other innovation releases that are being supported like 21, those vulnerabilities may exist also in previous versions, but no longer will there be security patches that are released for those. And then obviously institutions, especially those that are regulated, whether that be by an industry regulator like banks or in critical national infrastructure or health, whatever, or it could be by other regulators around, if you're payment card industry regulated, you have to show that you've mitigated those vulnerabilities that are announced. And it gets, obviously, it's a lot more complicated to do that when you don't have patching. So that's obviously one clear area. The other area is the lack of no new bug fixes. Now, to be fair, version 12, version 11 as well are very stable platforms. So the ability for new issues to come out is much less than it would be, say, on much newer technology where bugs are being found a lot. But of course, if bugs are found, that's an unplanned outage. It is often can end up in forced or unplanned upgrades, which could be hugely disruptive. But the area where I think, or I can see a lot of bugs are found in versions like 12 and 11 is where the interoperability breaks with other applications or operating systems. So I think we discussed and covered just a little bit earlier, Amol, around the security side, but as far as bug fixes, have you experienced situations on technology that's gone into sustaining support, maybe it was version 9 or 10 in the past that you're no longer on, where a new issue arose and you did not get support from Oracle? What typically happened with your team in that circumstance?
Well, it is Oracle being a proven product. So as you mentioned, that the chances of getting bug on these stable versions of Oracle is very rare. But in rarest case, we find out the alternate ways of getting rid of those bugs.
And is that, have you, in your experience, because I know when we work with your team all the time, and of course your team are very experienced, with a lot of years of experience in database as well. I think the average in your team is 15 to 20 years. It's very high.
That's correct.
So they've obviously in the past been able to find a level of workaround, but is that something which is a trivial exercise, or is that quite complicated and takes time out for them to fix?
Definitely, it's a complicated and time-consuming one.
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept of going to sustaining support is something which concerns a lot of people, and it means there needs to be a plan about how do you either mitigate with the existing environment or move away. So really, that's what the next slide is about: is 6 things that people can do about this. So the first one is, and we've discussed this a bit already in the last 12 minutes, is around doing nothing. Now, I'm being a bit facetious with doing nothing. What I'm suggesting there is you stay on Oracle 12c, but you do the other activities that Amol was referring to. So whether that's hardening, increased monitoring, you sandbox it, maybe you have to virtualize it, all the various different things you need to do to make sure that you remain protected and reduce the risk of outages due to interoperability breaks. But doing nothing is a key strategy. There are a lot of organizations globally that decide it works, it does what I need it to do, but I'm going to have to put in a lot of extra effort just to make sure I'm covering it. The second area is a strategy which a lot of people are having to do at the moment, which is hoping, hence the crossed fingers, for an Oracle extension. And it's something which we've seen previously on version 11, where an extension was provided, whether it's paid for as an additional charge from Oracle, or it's a trivial extension to what they have. What we saw on Oracle 11.2.0.4, the market-driven support, which is still ongoing for some people, is that it's a much more expensive support on top of the base, but also it's limited in that it's only on particular Sev 1 outages where you get help, and also they will then choose on which security updates they provide. So it's not the full-blown support you've been used to, and the intent from Oracle is to encourage you again to move off onto newer versions of the software. As we stand today, and we're on the, I should know, 26th of May, because we've been looking forward to this webinar for some time, the 26th. I just checked earlier, and there is nothing still announced from Oracle on what the plan is going to be at the end of July for 12c. And of course, 12 is a very large deployment globally. There's a lot of people that we speak to and a lot of our existing customers who have a big deployment on 12. So it is obviously a lot of people are waiting to see, but if Oracle chooses to do nothing or something very limited, well, what does that mean for many of the people who are on this webinar today? So there are 4 other options which we're going to talk to now, and Amol's already mentioned about upgrading to 19c, which is obviously something which Danske went through extensively. So the majority of your databases today are on 19c. I think most people on this call will probably understand, but if you could just share, Amol, how long does it take to upgrade from 12 to 19? What's the range?
As I mentioned earlier, that it becomes a project in itself, and it takes becomes 2 to 3 years project if you have a large or a considerable number of databases in your uh, data center.
And,
So
that, and, that, and how consuming for a team like yours is that? I mean, is it then become the majority of what they do?
yes, then 60% to 70% of time of a DBA is invested in upgrading of databases.
It doesn't feel a fulfilling role, but and as you mentioned before, taking up that amount of time of the team is okay if it's justified from a business reason because you've got new functionality you need. But I think you mentioned there's quite a lot of times you're just upgrading to be supported. You're not really upgrading for new capability or functionality. So that's
Yeah, many times it happens for to be compliant, to be secured, and to be supported.
yeah, absolutely. And so that means that what a huge amount of effort from a really critical team like your team to go through this exercise of upgrading when actually all you need is to have the support, to have the patches. You don't actually need to have gone through all that exercise if there was an alternative, of course, if there was an alternative, or if Oracle provided an extension. So that's the upgrading to 19C. Of course, the other option, which a lot of people are going through today as well, is migrating off of Oracle database itself. So we have a lot of clients who are looking at or actively progressing a migration to Postgres SQL or to Microsoft SQL Server. Some even going to completely different technologies depending on the need. Is this something Danska's looked at, Amol?
Yes, but we have looked at, and but onboarding a new product has to go through a very stringent security and risk and compliance assessment, and also application vendors have their own preferences of databases, and which they have. For example, some applications have proven track record with the Oracle database only, so it is not always be able to migrate to any other database from Oracle. But yeah, but it can happen in phases. So we are looking for and working on it.
Absolutely. And these two options in the middle here, the upgrade to 19C and migrate off of Oracle, do fix the problem of not being supported. But unfortunately, if you're sitting today with a whole estate of Oracle 12C, you're not fixing your problem in a short time because this upgrade or the migration off is going to take months, even years, which means you've got months, even years of that exposure that we talked about on the previous slide. So the reason really for having this webinar today is yes, to talk about those four options, but there are two other options which not everyone's aware of. And when people find out about this, it sometimes is quite shocking. I'll give an example. I spoke to a major credit card company, global credit card company, last month, and they just talked about how they'd upgraded 1,000 databases from 12 to 19C, and most of it was, as Amol explained, wasn't needed for anything other than to be supported. Unfortunately, that migration is not always a straightforward migration. I had an analogy explained to me recently. It was a bit like taking an old car, changing the engine and putting a jet engine inside. So whilst that might seem like an attractive prospect, sometimes the jet engine breaks parts of the car as well. And this is exactly what that credit card company found, that they had customers where they had transactions that needed to be in microseconds and used to be, and now are taking tenths or even actual seconds to fulfill a transaction, and so needed a lot of remediation work to fix it. So the whole upgrade cycle is painful. What we also want to share on this webinar today is these last two. So the first one is a concept that we've come up with at Spinnaker called parallel support. Now, this is where you carry on with Oracle today and you carry on with your sustaining support, because still you're paying for it, and the vast majority of tickets that you might have or issues are ones which other clients have already experienced, and so they will be resolved. But from a security perspective, and also from where there are issues where Oracle cannot resolve, or their answer is, well, you've got to upgrade, well, we can fix those. And that's the bit we're going to talk about on the next slide, is about, well, how on earth is that possible? But instead of Oracle, we can actually fix those pieces, as we say, as a parallel support. So it's an on-the-top charge. Or you can go the whole hog and turn off your Oracle support completely, like Danske did for their database and middleware, and move it to Spinnaker Support on whole, where not only do you make a massive saving, because we're not going to be charging you those massive amounts we saw 2 pages back, but we're now going to give you a complete support for your database, no matter how new or how old it is, across the whole piece. So I think this bit, Amol, I'd be really appreciative if you could share with the attendees today a little bit about what you're experiencing. So I'm just going to share with everyone, this is on the left side, the 5 bubbles are essentially the bits that replace what you get with Oracle support today. So it's the break fix, where it's required, the global tax, regulatory and compliance updates. You don't need that for database or middleware, but obviously you do if you've got e-business suite or PeopleSoft. The general inquiries, which replaces the conversation with My Oracle support. The security and vulnerability management, which is the fundamental piece we've been talking about today around the patches that you'll no longer be getting from Oracle. And then the technology advisory services, which is an addition to what you do get with Oracle today, but because we've become an extended part of your team, and we are a group of 20+ year experienced engineers who you speak to within 5 minutes straight away, you're not having to wait to get to resolver groups, then we can also provide advice on migrations and upgrades and all this kind of thing as well. So obviously, Amol, your team's been experiencing this. Can you sort of share what it's been for Danske Bank?
Okay, so as I had already said that Spinnaker is a go-to person for us. So for break fixes and normal issues, we had a very, very good response time, and very approachable. Spinnaker is very approachable, and I would like to cover this security and vulnerability management. So we are very happy with the quarterly bulletin where CVE and CVSS analyses are shared, and we are able to find out which vulnerabilities are applicable for our environment, and we fix it on high priorities. So, and advice and guidance for we had approached Spinnaker for our platform migration approaches, and are very happy with the directions and advice and guidance given by their consultants.
My goodness, so that was hitting most of those bubbles then that we're just showing here. So on, obviously, and we mentioned this before, your team in the past, before they had a Spinnaker, whilst you still had Oracle as a support, but on older technology that had a break fix, you mentioned on a couple of occasions your team had fixed the issue. Now, of course, we're working with your team to fix it for you. How do you find that experience? Because as we mentioned, your team is already very, 10, 15 years. Surely they already know the answer. Why would they need to work with us?
So, sorry, Martin, can you please?
I'm trying to ask the question about, obviously your team has a lot of deep technical skills, but they still enjoy working with the Spinnaker team. Can you sort of articulate why that is?
Okay, yes, because many times the different experience and different approaches comes from discussion, or when we put the queries to Spinnaker, they come with the approach and solutions which our team may not have experienced, and we evaluate those because every technical experts have different approaches to the same problem. So it has been helpful.
Excellent, and that's because this is what we do. You know, we are a global organization. We have capability that follows the sun across, and we support customers in over 120 countries today. So you are getting a full support, and whilst being based in Denmark and India, you have what we call an account support lead, who's our technical leader that you work with on a regular basis. Of course, the rest of the team covers your time zone quite comfortably, so hence the responsiveness you talked about. Actually, when you talk about responsiveness, how long does, from when you get an issue and you raise a ticket, whether that's by email, phone, or using our tool, typically how long does it take for us to get in contact with you?
I think it is a few minutes.
Yeah,
from my experience, yeah, depending upon the severity. Although if it is a high severity, it is attended and responded immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And that person, just to be clear, is not a junior engineer or a call center, right? It's the deep technical level 4 resource straight away, right?
Yes, and we have a point of contact in case if it is not responded, or but that situation has never come. But we have a go-to person assigned to our.
Excellent, thank you, Amol. So the experience I'm glad to hear is obviously highly satisfactory. And what I wanted to share on this webinar is that as you look at 12C, there are a whole range of options to look at. But there are two which you might not have been aware of. One was that on the top support, which can be turned on straight away. Obviously, just have a conversation with myself. Oh, by the way, you can speak to myself or Amol on LinkedIn if you want to, but please do, if you've got any questions about the service itself, please do reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with anyone in my team. But if you want to look at the full support piece, it's not necessarily something you can turn on overnight. We would typically say, you know, a period of planning of 5 to 7 months is normally ideal, not because it takes us that amount of time to deliver the service. You know, you can come to us, we can deliver the service the very next day. The reason is because breaking away from Oracle and making the company feel comfortable that this is the right strategic move does take time. You've got to win hearts and minds. We have a lot of discussions, whether it's customers speaking to existing customers like Danske Bank, or whether it's talking to some of our engineers to understand exactly how we approach this, but that can take a while. So if you have an Oracle renewal, for example, that's at the end of the year, then starting a conversation with Spinnaker right now is a really good time to do that. So I just wanted to share that with you. We wanted to share, you know, Spinnaker can be your trusted partner here for Oracle support. We also do managed services and technical consulting. It's all based around our people, expert resources who are available 24/7, and then we can build a flexible structure around that. And the critical piece, I think you've heard time and time again, is access to that level 4 support immediately. So I just want to wrap up. I really want to thank Amol for his time today. It's been fantastic. You've been very generous. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And for those watching here, I'd want to share that you can save the date for another webinar we're running soon, just under a month's time on the 23rd of June, at this time about SAP annual renewal, because SAP's renewals come on 31st of December every year. So now is definitely the right time to be thinking about that. So thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. I hope it's been useful and eye-opening. And please do reach out to us. Myself or Amol are free to chat, myself especially. Amel's got a day job to do. And hopefully we speak soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.